Hi, good afternoon. English First Additional Language. It is Wednesday, the 19th of August. Lockdown level 2 was reached on the 17th at midnight, and so we well and truly hopefully getting to the end of the pandemic lockdown situation. Hope you're all keeping safe, keeping warm. It's been freezing here in the Eastern Cape with lots of rain, which we're very thankful for. But the blistery cold weather has really got to me as well. So I'm trying to stay warm, and I'm hoping you are all staying warm. So let's just go to today's recorded session. I'm just going to share my screen with you now. Here we go. Okay. So we're on to week 3 already. Can you believe it? It's flashing by. I've got one more week to go, and we finish the grammar section for semester 2, and then we'll go on to writing. So for this week, we're looking at selecting and designing appropriate language resources for grammar teaching. So what resources could be used for grammar teaching? And I'm going to come from this from a certain angle you'll see now. But first, let's have a look at our task completion for our on-track learning, and you'll see that in week 1, 13 of the 20, I should color that in black, I think, for the SPs completed the online tracking task, and this week so far 11 of you have. So it seems like there are only 8 of you actually active, although 20 should be enrolled, and the 11 of you have completed. You've got until midnight, 21 August, to complete your second task for online tracking. With FETs, seems like only 3 of you are active out of the 8 that are enrolled, and both weeks you have completed the online tracking task quite nicely, so that's pretty good. Here we go. And as you all know, maybe depression, assignment 1 is now due on Friday night at midnight. I've had quite a few emails with queries. Hopefully last week's going over the assignment 1 helped a bit. I'm hoping so. The biggest thing, it seems like there seem to be problems with people not really knowing how to do the grammar related sections. It's all related to the text. They all should be adding to the social comment of your assignment. So if it's the language conventions or structures, it should be relating to the message that has been relayed in the text. Same with the visual literacy, same with the summary, same with the social discourse, what words have been used, what perspectives have been shared. So that's the sort of thrust I need from you. Okay, if you've got any problems, get back to me, email me. So unit 1, semester 2, we've gone through the importance of teaching language, grammar, how do we teach it? Last week we looked at how do we integrate all our language teaching strategies for grammar, using all kinds of skills. That's how it should be integrated and contextualized. I said, are you confused? How do you teach grammar? The way you can do it, it's not isolated, it's not rule-based. Those are the strategies we're going to look at. And then today we can look at appropriate resources that we can use to integrate our language teaching with all our skills. And we include a few grammar games at the end and other techniques. Okay, so we're looking at different resources and ideas that teachers can use for teaching grammar. And it's not really going to be related to books at all. You'll see. Next week, we'll look at assessing language structure, and we finish all the grammar part of this exercise, and all from chapter 13 in Ferreira for extra material that you might need. Okay, so resources. What resources would we need for a communicative language teaching environment? And I'm going to stress the idea it should be CTL, CRT, because we're learning grammar in a functionalized, contextualized, not rule-based, isolated context. It's got to be meaningful. It's got to be related to whatever theme we're working on. It mustn't be pulled out the air and all part of the rules. Okay. So therefore, there's no set format for your CLT lessons. I can't say use this book. I can't say use this book. I can say use anything as long as it's contextualized and it's meaningful and materials relevant. You can work any grammar lesson into something like that. So the underlying principle for CLT classroom is that language is used to learn, and to communicate. So you must use language in a way that you're learning something and you're communicating something. So we're talking, we're listening, we're speaking, we're writing, we're reading. And it must be authentic subject matter. A newspaper report, an article in a magazine, a picture that you found, a topic that's happening at the moment. These are authentic, real. You don't have to go and make anything up. It's something that has happened, something that's relevant, something that's meaningful to your students. That is your material. That's why for assignment 1, you had to go look for a contextualized item report, which was portraying a social message. So in your grammar instruction as teachers, you should provide the meaningful input through a context. The context might be COVID-19. It could be bullying. It could be protesting. It could be school uniforms. Whatever the context is, you're going to give the input on that. And then you're going to give opportunities to use grammar within that context. Asking questions, probing different items, identifying different things. And these must all relate to real life situations. So all the grammar instruction is realistic, it's meaningful, it's relevant. It's not isolated and out of context. So is your lesson like this? What are we teaching? And the child goes, I don't know. And the student says, what am I learning? I mean, what is going on in this classroom? What are we supposed to be doing? Are our lessons like this? Right, so yeah, just a few principles for CLT again, just to remind you. And this comes from Richards and Rogers in 2001. The key principles for CLT is that it must be communicative. We use it to communicate a message somewhere. It must be based on a task-based, your article, the project, the theme, the assignment, and it must be meaningful to the student as well. Relevant topics, things that they are interested in. So language learning requirements are that the language learning must be active, all right, must be meaning making. And you do this by being collaborative in your teaching. Groups get together, they're solving problems, they're being critical of the readings they are getting. They are doing writing for a reason. They're writing an application letter. They're responding to authentic materials that are happening. They're giving their opinions on different things. And we're also going to have some higher cognitive tasks. Not all remembering and understanding, but also creating, assessing, analyzing. Yes, and they're all going to be learner-centered, not teacher-centered, teacher talk. Relevant and meaningful to your students. Contextualized within the topic. Not taught in isolation, little bits and pieces all over the place. And so your activities are going to include individual work and independent work as well. Yes, they must do things by themselves, but you're also going to have pair work and group work and triad work with threes. You're going to have information gap activities. You give them part of the answer and then just going to find out the other. You're going to give them something to go and research, design a survey, go and ask questions, write a report, that type of thing. There's an interesting little triangle pyramid. There you've got on the left there, passive teaching methods. That means not doing very much. And then participatory teaching methods where the students are participating or they're just sitting there and listening. So if you lecture, like I'm doing now, retention's 5%. It's not very much, I'm afraid. If it's just reading that you're giving them to do, it's 10% they're going to be retained. Audio-visual, videos and things like that, 20%, but more. If you're demonstrating something, maybe 30%. But we class these all as passive teaching methods. But where the students participate, like in a group discussion, that's not always saying group work is so important. There's 50% retention of what they're learning. If they practice, remember I said practice is so important, practice, 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 they will retain 75%. If they go and teach others, just use your little bright sparks in your class to help you teach, all right? They will retain 90%. Okay, so you as teachers, you're going to retain a lot because you're teaching others. Remember, no passive teaching, participatory teaching. There we go. There we go. Right, here we get in onto our resources. Make use of real life situations It's really happening in the world. The world's an exciting place. Lots of things are happening that rely on them communicating something. Okay, are you this kind of teacher? English interrogative constructions. Do you even know what that means? Questioning. And the teacher sits in the front, not being part of the class. The auxiliary verb, which normally appears after the subject, must move to sentence initial position. No, that's the rule. And the student in the front says, what's a verb? Okay, so rules like that, and teaching is so archaic and traditional. You do not do that. Remember, there are other ways to teach the rules. No. Okay. Rather, your lesson should follow the 4 C's. It must be based on the content that's meaningful, communication, they're going to be doing something, cognition, high order skills, and culture that is aware of their culture. So those are the 4 C's of the curriculum. And you should involve all 4 language skills as much as you can. There's going to be some reading, there's going to be some listening, there's going to be some speaking, there's going to be some writing. I always like lessons to finish off with something that's written, because that reinforces a lot of what is going on, and it gives the teacher a chance to see what they have attained. Okay, there are the 4 skills, and all of these together will lead to fluency and proficiency in the language. Okay, not just 1, not just 2, all of them. Right, I'm going to give you a few examples. I think I've got 5 of CLT examples of how you can teach this, the kind of resources you could use to teach adjectives, for instance. Your prior knowledge would be that they should know what a common and a proper noun is, naming words. You're asking the learners the materials, they must bring a photograph or a picture that they find interesting to class. If they don't have a whole pile ready, which you can give out, but try and get them to give something that's quite personal, they can bring that with them to class. Everyone's got Facebook. If they've got their phones, they could actually have their pictures on their phones. Okay. Here's one of an elephant in the game reserve. Quite a scary, interesting picture there. I just randomly took some pictures. The whole idea of testing your temperature as you're walking around, COVID-19, has become a new trend. I see you also do your wrists now to test your temperatures. Yes, this is when the lockdown was in full swing. Stay home. Okay, there's an interesting picture. See, there's no cars around, no people. It was quite desolate at that time. And then, yes, the joys of standing in queues with our masks on and waiting. Not much social distancing there, but those kind of interesting pictures. Right, then in pairs, yes, get together in pairs, and they will write together, the 2 of them, 5 interesting sentences about the picture. Okay, then they will, in each sentence, they'll underline their nouns. Then they will insert describing words. The man stands by his trolley. The tired man, the exhausted man, the hot man stands by his trolley. So then they highlight these adjectives that they've used. Then they look at their sentences, and then they think of what they can add, and they write a descriptive paragraph, but they do not underline the adjectives. Okay, so now they've done the rough bit, and they're going to write a paragraph. Use those 5 sentences, but they're not going to underline the adjectives. Then they're going to swap with a group, with another group, another pair, and that group must then go and underline all the adjectives that the other group put in. Then they're going to return the paragraphs to each other once everyone has completed it, and then pair look and they check to see, was this correct underlining of the adjectives, all right? So the pairs read the paragraphs into the class and discuss how the paragraph could be improved. So it becomes a discussion. And then independently, this means by themselves, the learners will write a descriptive paragraph using their own pictures, and they will highlight adjectives that they've used. And in this way, we've used visuals to actually create a descriptive paragraph. And with the knowledge that they know what nouns are, yes, that's a grammar item, part of speech, word class, and they know what adjectives are. Here's another interesting method of actually sentence structures, and you might have been doing film study or something like this. This is a movie called The Life of P. It's about an Indian family that sold up the zoo in India after they decided to move to Canada, and the family, the Patels, left with all their sons and a collection of wild animals from the zoos, but unfortunately the freighter was shipwrecked, and only the one son, P, he survived. All right, so this is the story, and his Bengal tiger called Richard Parker. So this is part of the story. They might have been doing the film study, they might have done a short story about it. So the teacher takes the story and cuts the sentences into strips. Here's all the sentences, and places these in envelopes. The ship sank, it made a sound, an metallic burp, then bubbles came to the surface, everything was screaming in the sea, the wind, my heart, from the lifeboat, I saw something in the water. I cried, Richard Parker, is that you? It's so hard to see. Oh, that this rain would stop. Richard Parker, Richard Parker. Yes, it is you. I could see his head. He was struggling to stay at the surface of the water. Richard Parker is the Bengal tiger. You can't see it here yet, but that's the shipwreck part. And so all these little sentences will be separate, which go to the group. So they're going to then, in pairs or triads, they're going to rearrange these sentences into meaningful discourse. And they begin with the sentence in bold. All right, that's the only help they're getting. And you can, as long as the sentence makes, as long as the story makes sense, it's okay. Doesn't have to follow the order of the actual text. And there you can see there's Richard Parker, the Bengal tiger, and there you can see P sitting there trying to reunite with his friend, and they've got to learn to trust each other and live together on this boat, on this lifeboat. There's the rest of the story. Getting Richard Parker to swim to him, kick your legs, kick. He stood in the water and he started swimming. So it's all part of the story they're going to do. There is the life of P. You might want to go and watch it. There's Bengal tiger. There they're making friends on the lifeboat. And then from that, you can also do the same. You can reconstruct poems, dialogues, prose, interviews, cartoon strips. Okay, these are all different ways you could use this method to sentence structures, to see how cohesion takes place, to see how coherence takes place, to see how sentences should follow each other, and it's meaningfully wrapped into this context. The third example is making predictions. How could we do a grammar task based on this? Right, so as a teacher, you can try and go to the movies, I think they're open now, and get 2 or 3 movie posters, put these up on the wall for a few days, don't say anything, let them see what's going on, and then you can print a copy of the movie reviews where you found them. And these are 3 movies I've selected. The Great Gatsby, because that's one of the set works, and there's Leonardo DiCaprio there, you see him. This is the Twilight Zone, Breaking Dawn sagas. Okay, I don't know if you've read them. You know what they're about, and they are interesting. And then we've got 007 with Craig, as the chief actor. And there, as I say, he's the best since Sean Connery. I don't know if you like these action-packed movies. So you've got all these posters hanging up, and they've been seeing this, and they come to class one day as an individual activity. You tell them, okay, go and study the posters, and for each poster, write sentences on what you like about those posters and those movies, what appeals to you, and then also what does not appeal to you. And then select one poster that appeals to you the most and say why. So this is an individual task the students will go and do. Then you have a group work, which will also include the movie reviews, so that they're working 3s now, and they look at each of the movies, what genre does each one belong to, which one does 007 belong to, which one does the Twilight Breaking Dawn belong to, which one does the Great Gatsby belong to, and what visual details within this, here's your visual literacy, supports the genre, that is action, okay, obviously Lion with his gun, ready to shoot someone, that is definitely an action, maybe horror with the Breaking Dawn, and then drama with the Great Gatsby. Then you can also discuss their visual, their worksheet 1 responses, what appealed to them, each one in the group, what didn't appeal to them, why, which one they would choose, and so on. Then they might be asked in their groups, what do you think each movie is about? So they've got to think about it, looking at the visual details. Why do you think it's about horror? You might say, well, there's all these people dressed like witches, maybe vampires, and it's very dark. And if you look at their faces, they look like ghosts. So those are kinds of things you could say to support why you said it's maybe a horror movie. Which one would you like to watch and why? Well, I like horror. Oh, no, I actually don't. but I would watch that. Or I like action, so therefore definitely the 007 Skyfall is going to be my choice. Or I'm a drama person. I enjoy good, solid narratives and novels enacted by fabulous actors and actresses. Okay. Then you'd move on to the reviews, and you would read each of the reviews, and they'd have to say, is it in favor of the movie? Is it not in favor of the movie? Is it neutral? And assess it. And here's the first one. It's about the Twilight Saga, and it's headed "What Parents Need to Know." And if you look at this, there's a whole thing, a lot of things that parents need to know. Can your kids go and see this movie? It talks about, it's a must-see movie. However, it does give you a bit of the ideas of what's happening in the movie right here in this last section. There's one long, sensuous love scene close-up of bare skin and faces and a glimpse of the side of Bella's breast, but nothing more graphic than that. Several passionate kisses between the various couples. Language is minimal, as in all movies in the series. So it's trying to say to parents, okay, if you want your kids to go and see this, you need to know there's going to be this love scene, there's going to be kissing, and so on. There are some shocking deaths as well, so obviously quite violent, so parents need to know this. Great Gatsby with Nick, we've got Leonardo DiCaprio, who was the Nick in it, and this person really liked him. Says, I'm not here to praise him, but I really love him. He did so well. I'd really like a friend like Nick. So obviously very positive towards this character. And she says Daisy was a terrible woman. We had a goal. He must have gone. She had nothing. There's something I know I read about that. She depicts the most shallow, useless woman that one should never that would never have a human goal. All right. So didn't like Daisy. Then the Skyfall, that was rated sky high, much better than the previous movies that he's been in. He's given a great Daniel Craig as being the most fabulous James Bond. Okay, so obviously very favorable towards it. Then they examine the language carefully. They say, how does a review of Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 2 differ from the other two? So how much different was it to the other two? So they've got to look through what the key sections were. Having read the reviews, are you still convinced you would like to watch the movie that you originally said you'd like to watch? Maybe now you've changed your mind, give reasons for your answer. And now the individual application. Choose a movie you have watched and write a review of it. So looking at movies, the pictures, how it was written, now they can go and write their own review. So they've been scaffolded to this point. Okay, I'm just finishing off here with critical language awareness, CLA. This is quite an important part of the CAPS document because it involves engaging with language to evaluate issues of power, inequality, social justice, identity, all these issues within language that is so important. With assignment 1, you also had one question on social discourse. You had to consider how words, euphemisms, use of punctuation can impact on a message, and would it show bias, would it show power, would it show weakness, the use of certain terms. Right. Language is superpower. Yes, it can hurt, it can comfort, it can encourage, it can motivate, it can inspire, or it can make someone very frustrated and angry. So language does have that power. So through enhancing this kind of acquisition, people can become critical readers, critical thinkers, critical writers. We learn to see how language actually can work. So from the CAPS document, these are all the things that are important for CLA, right from knowing the difference between facts and opinions, direct and implied meanings, denotation, connotation, omissions that people don't put in, relations, emotive, manipulative language like stereotyping, bias, arguments, and then interpretation of visual literacy, which we have done quite a lot of. Interestingly, I'm going to just have a look at critical thinking model that you could possibly use using, say, for instance, a politician's speech. This is from Opose's speech on the 15th when he announced lockdown level 2 starting. And if you look at the little model here, it's a model, how do we generate critical thinking? First of all, we've got the topic, so it's end of lockdown. So then you'll describe it, what, where, when, where, who, and then you analyze what was actually said. Why did he say this? How did he say that? What words did he use? And then you're going to evaluate it. So this is the model you could use for critical thinking. What if this happened? What if they didn't unban cigarettes? So what that they did? What's next? Are they going to ban it all again? So those are the way you would do a critical thinker model. So I downloaded Ramaphosa's speech. There it is. Not too sure which paper it was from. And there he was busy making it. Ramaphosa takes South Africa out of hard lockdown, lifts cigarette and alcohol ban. All right. Now, what I could do for my students, I could say, go and choose any article from a politician. Let's just try and see word use. So what happens is I took all those words and I pasted into a word cloud. There, I've got the actual address there, the link. You take the words and you paste it into it, and you'll see different, like we do for Mentimeter, different size. The words that are used the most are the biggest. There's another one. You can change the shapes and everything else with it. So what we're going to do now, there is a thumbs up. We're going to see what are the word repetitions. And the first one of the bigger words, the biggest word there is South Africa, then Ramaphosa, then the people, then lockdown, then travel, then infections, then decline numbers, then COVID-19, gym, alcohol, and can. So the most important words there were South Africa and Ramaphosa, it seems, and the people. Okay, we were all there together at the top. Then lockdown, okay, the infections and the declining numbers. Obviously, it must be very important to him. He obviously repeated these words a lot. That's why they are appearing on the side. Then the smaller words are interesting. Unemployed. So maybe things you don't want to dwell on too much. Cigarettes, you maybe don't want to talk about that too much. The present wasn't used. Losing confidence, the pandemic, the surge, unpopular, curfews, flattens, economy. I don't want to speak about the economy. You want to speak about bans. You don't want to speak about midnight. So all of those were smaller words, and you can go look at all of them there, and you can see the ones that he never emphasized or spoke or repeated are the small words, but the ones that he wanted people to remember are the ones that he used a lot. So one way for looking at critical language awareness is that you want to see which words are repeated all the time, because those are the text messages that are coming through. Then you can go and analyze those words. Ramaphosa didn't speak about all the unpopular things in that speech. He spoke about the good things, alcohol, travel, yes, look how high it is, lockdown, the infections, declining numbers, all those things you wanted to say, and then in this way. So and this is one way objectively you could actually go and interestingly look at a way to interpret CLA, which the students might find quite interesting, and they could also design their own shapes for all the speech. So anything like this is quite an interesting way to look at CLA. Grammar games are another way to look at things and to practice in the class. I quite like this expanding sentence way you can do something. So you've got a sentence, you can ask them to write any sentence, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. We stood outside for 20 minutes. Okay, that's the sentence you give them, or they make up the end of the sentence. Then they've got to add in an adjectives, okay. We stood outside for 20 miserable minutes, okay, so they've added the adjective. Now it says when. This morning, we stood outside for 20 miserable minutes. Where? This morning, we stood on the sidewalk in front of the school for 20 miserable minutes. So you can see how they're expanding it. How? This morning, we stood shivering, freezing on a snow-covered sidewalk in front of the school for 20 miserable minutes. Why? Okay, these are interesting. This morning, we stood shivering on a snow-covered sidewalk in front of the school for 20 miserable minutes while the fire chief investigated the cause of the fire alarm. Okay, and I'm sure some of the girls like doing this, but you can have different colors, the red, the orange, the green, the blue, and the pink. Okay, and you can write different colors, but you can see how you can actually extend a sentence. This is also ways to hook your reader and how you can start a paragraph. You can start with a question. Who left tiny footprints in my bedroom? Okay, feeling or emotion. The man's face was beet red when he screams, and his screams were very loud. Okay, a sound, ring, exclamation, oh no, complaint, no, I will not spend another summer at Auntie Marie's house. Repetition, yes, yes, yes. Description, the air was cool and the playground was strangely quiet and deserted. Adjectives, the young blonde woman was tall and had legs as thin as spaghetti. So these are different ways you can hook your reader and the way they can practice getting very exciting starts to their paragraphs. This is quite an interesting thing that we do 5 days a week. The first one is Monday. They're going to do all the mistakes that they made in grammar, the errors. Tuesday, they can look at different words that they think were quite interesting. They can have a little diary like this. Wednesdays, wise words and sayings. There's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Right, this is what Shakespeare said. Thursday is thoughts. What age do you consider to be old? Okay. I think most of you think about 25 is old. Do you think age is just a number? Yes, because when you're my age, you think it's just a number. And then Friday is figurative language, different similes, personifications you've come across. So you might say, well, every week we're going to have a different theme, and during those days you're going to collect a diary and a portfolio, and you're going to develop some kind of thinking around those topics. This is a grammar game with the dice. You get 1, you've got a list of coordinating conjunctions. If you can throw a dice with a 3, make up a sentence that uses 2 prepositional phrases and identify them, and so on. It gets more and more complex as you go through it. This is an interesting thing for little sort of icebreakers, questions for students. It's called fishing. You put all these little topics in a bowl and they pull it out. And number 1 says, what's your favorite wild animal? Number 9 says, what's your favorite part about summer? Number 5, name someone in your life who always teaches you things. So these little icebreakers, and they could just introduce themselves like that. A nice fun way to start a lesson. This is also something maybe for the grade 8s. It's called quick thinking, grammatical structures with a ball. Teacher throws a ball and says, Tando, and throws the ball. Tando catches it, and he has to answer. Tando runs, Tando sleeps, Tando eats. I mean, with a verb. Then Tando will throw it to his classmate, and he'll use pronouns like they. All right, throws a ball, and he must use the right concord with that. They speak, they learn, they swim, whatever it is. So in this way, they can practice use of a noun and the correct concord, verb, agreement, or subject. And they can add complexity where they must add an adverb, a noun, adjective. So as the ball goes around, you could add to that. Getting to know people. It's a practice of asking questions. You can pin the name, the teacher can pin the name of a famous person on the back of a learner. Yeah, I've got, you can see I listen to the voice. Mariah Carey, yes, Nick Jonas, Kelly Clarkson, I really like, and John Legend. Okay, so but whoever you want, anything sportsman, anything that they're interested, you can put that name of that person on their back. Then they've got to go around and ask questions to their friends to try and find out who this person is on their back. Does this person play sports? Is this person a scholar at our school? What type of music is played? So you would ask, maybe say you can ask 5 questions to see if you can determine who you are. And then the names are not revealed until everyone has come to who they think is on their back, and then they have a chance to reveal to the class who's possibly the person. But it's just practice communicative, asking questions, trying to find out the information gap type process. Also predicting activities. This is also a tense practice idea. Each group has a picture of some action thing happening, a man running, a child crying. Yeah, we've got an action movie. What's happening in this? You've got to think about what's happening there. What's happening there? Ziplining. What's happening here? Looks like a protest. What's happening here? What they're doing. All right. And the teacher writes on the board, or you write on the board, what happened next? Okay, so you've got these situations, you've chatted about them, and the group has got to discuss what they think happens next, all right? And then they've got to answer using words like yesterday, this happened, this morning, this is going to happen, after this happened, from 2 p.m. this will happen, from tomorrow this will. So you'll use the different tenses if you use those words in different ways. Okay. Right, so those are your tense practice. So what we're going to do for the online tracking for this week is I'm going to give you a question and answer forum again as a practice. I must still put that up on ECI. In your post, you should write at least 50 words on the question I'm going to give you. I've got a different one for each of the classes. So FET, FAL will not write the same thing as HL, FET. Okay. Comment on it to other student posts. So remember, you won't be able to comment on anyone's post until you've actually posted yours. Okay, this might be a bit tricky, but you'll see how it works. We've done this last semester. So answer one question. Different questions are posed per course. And it's all about CLT, communicative language teaching. Grammar, pronunciation, and vocab are, of course, necessary to be effectively in your communication. With the communication language teaching method, two primary approaches might be taken, okay? And then these are the questions. One question is, why is teaching a grammar rule and following it up with practice an acceptable CLT teaching method? I've asked you one of those questions, or it could have been, why is discovering grammar through meaningful communication interaction often not practiced today in the classroom? Or why do CLT approaches focus on fluency rather than on accuracy? How can grammar be contextualized in the language class? So these are types of questions you're going to get asked on your forum, and then you must go and try and answer it in 50 words, then comment on the answers of two others in your group. Okay, so that's all going to be done for the 28th, okay, following Friday. So here we go. What's next? We looked at English resources today, different activities. As you can see, you can use anything to teach a grammar lesson. You don't have to have a book even. And then love is English. Yes, you should all be in love with teaching language and English in particular. And next week, we're going to look at assessment. How do we assess grammar within the classroom? Okay, so have a good week. Stay warm. And I'll chat to you either through email or I think I'm not too sure what kind of lesson is next week. I don't know if it's Zoom or Moodle, but I'll check that out. But stay well and look after yourselves. So I say ciao, bye from PE.